We are alive. How are you doing?
I'm very well. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm really happy to have you here. So why don't you tell us what you do?
What do I do? I do everything that doesn't earn money. I'm very, very talented at those things. So I'm a comedian. I'm a producer. I do voiceovers, artistic, and sometimes weird things.
That's nice. I liked the point when you say I do things that doesn't earn money. And I want to ask you about this.
Mhm.
Why do you think some people get so successful? Even themselves, they are like, I don't know, like there were people that they are better than me, or some comedians, they would be like, there were people that they were even funnier than me, but I feel like I'm a lucky person.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a huge part of it is luck. And I mean, I don't want to say that sounding like a bitter performer, is I've been a performer all my life and I've seen a lot of things where it's like this one thing could kind of be the thing that takes you further, but it just doesn't happen. So I do think absolutely all the things are necessary, like hard work and, for comedy, obviously being funny and all those things. But most people have those that go into those fields, right? They have the talent, the ability, and the drive. And then some of it is who you know and the right time and a matter of luck. So I think anyone who makes it in the business, it's good if they stay humble enough to be like, some of this is just luck, you know?
Exactly. I hear, because look, I would consider myself now I'm at the beginning of the road.
Sure.
I'm just starting my engine. And that's why
Yeah.
I love to talk to people in the podcast, because I do learn a lot. Um, for me, I do feel like, I don't know, is it luck? Is it hard work? What's in the end of the road? But what makes me happy and satisfied is hard work and discipline. So I really
Mhm.
don't know, I'm not guaranteed that I will get it, but it's just,
Right.
that's how I like to wake up, that's how I keep happy. I'm not doing
Sure.
it because I know if I do it I will get this. Just lifestyle.
That's the healthiest perspective, I say, as probably a very unhealthy mentally person. But like, I think that's tremendously healthy because there are no guarantees. And if you go into it, or even if you continue doing it, at a certain point, you burn out if it's always about, I didn't get the thing I think I deserved. So I think if you go into it or you have a passion when you're working on it, that's the only thing really that ends up being satisfying. Everything else is definitely a matter of luck. So I think you've got the right perspective, or the most mentally sane perspective in this kind of field.
Exactly. And I also like, I'm doing this because I enjoy it. For example,
Good.
comedy, it brings the dopamine up all the time. Even when people are
Mm.
bombing, I just like
Mm.
to, like, I don't want to say that I enjoy watching people bombing, but it's just fun. Even if people
It's
are not making fun, just to listen, what the fuck did they say? And nobody cares about it. Why, what this to
right.
make people laugh? And then sometimes they would change it. So I feel that I have fun with this. I feel like I want to send the message to people through comedy, I'm like, if it didn't work, then it didn't work. At least, like as you said, every day I'm just having fun with it. And I think the most thing that succeed is the one that you are having fun with. Give it, like,
Mm.
because you can, in a way, something will come even in 10 years, in 15 years, in 20 years. So
Yeah.
when you are having fun with it, it's like it become like a game and the lifestyle. And I think that's the most chances to succeed. What do you think?
I agree completely with you. Like, I think that you can look back on it. Like, there's times where I've written some things and it wasn't working. And there are a number of reasons it wasn't working. But then I'll go back to it years later and I'm like, this is still funny. I mean, I still feel good about it. And then I will try it again. And it works. And it works probably because with more understanding of comedy and more comfort in myself and maybe more ability to take bigger risks and throw myself more into it, to be like, okay, I'm just going to be completely stupid and act this out even if I feel self-conscious. Sometimes that's what it takes. And so going back I agree. Like going back is very exciting. You said so many things in what you were saying that I'm like, okay, and then this, and then this. But yeah, I think you always get something out of working at comedy, even though, I mean, I go in and out. Right now I'm in lockdown. And so my mental state is like, what is comedy? But I think that you always do get something, whether it's like coming to terms with something that you're experiencing and dealing with that, or in a way it's like understanding that other people have the similar experience. Or I think that like when I listen to your comedy a lot of times, and I'm going to say this, I'm an ignorant white person who's lived in North America my whole life, right? So there's very little that I know about a lot of places in the world. And I think I had heard Yemen mentioned in a sitcom in the 80s, like that's my only reference for Yemen. And I had to look it up when you were talking about it. I was like, where's Yemen? And oh my God, there's a lot of bad things happening there. That's how dumb I am. But I think a lot of people are as stupid as I am about a lot of parts in the world. And there you are, like explaining these like both terrible and sometimes funny aspects of it. And I mean, I'm sure that maybe helps you come to terms with how awful it is in some parts of the world that you've lived in. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I want to give you one more information about Yemen.
Yes.
Everyone in Yemen knows your name. I would say Monica is the most famous name, and they don't even know that it's female name. So there is the car, Land Cruiser. You know this car? It's like
Land Cruiser? Yeah, like the big, like a Jeep
yes.
thing?
So
yeah, okay.
Somehow there was something associated with one woman, her name Monica, that brought the cars, or something was associated with like she was involved in bringing these cars to Yemen.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So people call this car Monica.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
That could be a car.
Yeah.
I could do it. That seems like a really productive like next step for me. You know how sometimes you wonder like, well, what's my next career or whatever? Maybe I could just be a car. Wouldn't that'd be really nice. I think I would feel like that was a productive way to go about the rest of my life.
I don't know. Cars are weird. You don't want to be a car.
I don't want to drive a car, but I wouldn't mind being a car.
Monica, when we buy a car in Yemen, that's how horrible it is. We ask the seller, where was the car used the last like 5 years or 10 years, or let's say 2 years. If it was used in Yemen, nobody buy it.
I can only imagine. Yeah, all right. And is it because there's just no way to drive where it doesn't get damaged, like through the desert or the?
Okay, I'm gonna answer you with different answer, which is so 60 kilometers. I don't know how much it is in mile, because you use mile, but that takes 1 hour driving. 1 hour
Okay.
safe driving, like you are driving safe with the. In Yemen, it might take you 5 hours.
Okay, so is that attributed to how like the roads? Yeah, okay.
So the government doesn't have money to fix the road.
Right.
So first of all, the road that they fix is like very bad quality, and it's been there for 30 years. So it's like if you drive more than 40, you die. It's like there is holes everywhere. And for example, the marketing in the world, you guys make advertisements on YouTube, this is how people, in Yemen, they make hump on the road for cars, big one. And then they would like come and sell fruits or.
Okay, they like making like turning lemons into lemonade. Like this is it's like, well, we've got a hump here, so let's make this into like an actual hub of people. Let's like make a commerce out of the fact that we've got like this terrible hump that doesn't allow cars to drive properly. All right, good innovation.
No, like they would put hump, like people in the army, they can even hide behind it if they have war. Big hump, so people can slow down and see their tomatoes or whatever they are trying.
Yeah, but they didn't create the hump. It's just that because it's already there, then people, or they made the hump specifically so you would stop?
these people, they also make it specifically, and they build it, they don't have,
Oh,
Monica, they
oh
don't have
no.
even techniques. They
Oh
don't
no.
have techniques. It's like
No.
the father meet with the son, they mix some materials.
And then they put oh, that's way worse than I expected.
And
Okay,
then
you're like
there is no
actually lowering
sign.
my expectations of Yemen at this point. I didn't think that was possible, but like, okay.
And when I'm driving here, they would say like in 1 kilometer there is hump, in 50 kilometer there is hump.
Oh my
20,
God.
I'm like, shut the fuck up. And then
Oh
when
my
I
God.
arrive, it's just a normal hump, small one to slow down. In Yemen, if you are fast with that hump, you die because it's not from the government. There is no just.
Okay, well, now I think maybe I've been underestimating. I live in Montreal and there's like constant construction and it's just like a nightmare that way. Not anything, nothing to compare, but I think maybe now I'm starting to think maybe it's intentional. Maybe they're just going the route of Yemen and saying like, let's just destroy parts of this place and then we can like erect billboards and make people stop and have like fruit stands. Maybe they're like, maybe you guys are like, yeah, really innovating. You're in the future. And
Billions.
that's awful. I don't know what to say.
It's
It's
crazy.
just awful.
And Yemen is mountains more than
Yeah.
desert as well. That's why it's so beautiful. There is more mountain.
Okay.
That's why when people think Middle East, they think about desert. And that's why I make more jokes about camels, because people think that camels there whenever you come from country and you are this color. But where I lived, it's more mountain and it's really beautiful. Anyway,
Okay, nice.
joke.
I honestly, as dumb as I am, I wouldn't have guessed the camels until you brought it up in comedy. And I was like, oh shit, there's camels there. You know, like I would, it's like, I at least didn't do that. I can't be proud of myself. I'm still clueless, but at least that was.
Do you never meet camel in your life face to face?
I've never met a camel, no.
Oh.
I've met llamas. I guess they're kind of similar, but they're not.
Fake. Yeah.
What's that?
They are fake. Camel.
They're fake camels. They're like posing as camels. Okay.
I was surprised. We think only two humps. There is only camels. There is cow in India that has two humps. Have you thought about it?
I've never thought about how many humps a camel has.
No, camels, they rather have one hump or two. Cow,
Okay.
Cows. Have you ever met a cow as well?
I've met a cow, yeah.
That's cool. So cow have one hump. But in India, they have two cows that have two humps.
Oh, okay. That's what is like the reasoning? Like why did it evolve into that?
So I don't know what science think, but through my comedy research, how to make people laugh, I decided that one hump is for the water, one hump for the food. So the one hump are faster because there is only one, but the other one you can use them for long distance because
nice. Okay.
So it's not science. I don't. Most probably there is no. That's just comedy science.
Listen, it doesn't matter. People listen to podcasters and think they know something about how the world works, and so you might as well. People will sit here and listen to it and be like, "That's the reason." He told me. So you're going to be fine. It's science now. It's officially now science.
Oh, and then that you bring a podcast up. Look, so I grew up in Yemen and we don't know comedy. Even comedy, no, look, there is 30 people in Yemen now. Like, I don't know, maybe it's double to 60, maybe it's down to 15 because of the war or people are having sex. There is no, they are not counting. The counting that we are 30 million, the last time they count Yemen population is in 2000. So now we don't know in 20 years. There is too many people in the country. So we say 30 million. And there is more Yemeni outside Yemen.
Oh, sure.
Anyway, so we are more than India.
That's wild.
Oh my God. I hate when I had one point here and then I start talking. Now I feel I'm somewhere else.
This is my whole life. Yes. Okay. Podcast.
I'm back.
We're okay. Good. Perfect.
So we don't know what's comedy, we don't know what's podcast. Like my dad wasn't even allowing me to listen to music. So when I find comedy, it's like, how to say, it's like, let's say you are with someone for like, or no, that's not good. It's just, I found something and I love it the most. And I just
That's
find it,
great. Oh, it's so
you
great.
know,
Yeah.
it's
Beautiful.
everything about comedy, what I do, how it changed my life. It's like, I'm like, why I didn't know this? As a human, I have the right to know this. Also, podcast. I was introduced to Joe Rogan podcast when
Yeah.
I didn't even know how to speak proper English, which is like, I think 4 years ago, 3 years ago. But I got fascinated. Like, I saw Elon Musk. I just loved them. I saw
Yeah.
Joe Rogan, and then from there, I listened to all his podcasts. You know, they are like 3 hours, 3.5 hours.
He's a very dynamic, interesting person.
And you know, he said too many bullshit, but
Hmm.
it's like, I don't know, I feel trust to the podcast. I feel like I become who I am, and you know, I decided to I don't know how to, you know, I before I had religion and God, you know, but now Joe Rogan is not the God, or Joe Rogan podcast is not the God, but the way, the path they take and the mentality
Sure.
is like become another religion.
Yeah, no, I get that. Well, comedy is a very obsessive thing. Like when you're in it, you're so in it. And you kind of have to be able to get better. And so I think that that's completely normal, that it almost does become a religion, because you're so committed and faithful, and it's constant. It's constantly on your mind. You're constantly doing things for it. Yeah, and it's like a combination of a religion and an addiction. And so it's both healthy and unhealthy, the same way both of those things are both useful and unuseful.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
And one more thing, which is, I feel like I have too many bonuses in my life. I don't know. So I love Joe Rogan, and I didn't know that he's comedian, because
Okay.
I
Yeah.
have very poor English. I just saw him in the UFC. I like the podcast. And then I knew that he's comedian. And now I'm practicing this. So for me, I want, like, now my biggest goal is to do opening for him. This is my
Oh,
biggest goal.
okay. That's
And
great. Great
and
goal.
it's like, it's big push for me when I know that how much this will mean to me.
That's exciting. Oh, that's so exciting. I have my issues with, some of the bullshit that he's spreading right now. But I first saw him on a sitcom. I don't know if you've ever seen the show News Radio.
Maybe no.
It's very cool. I don't know. I think it holds up still now, but I think it was I think it was a show in the 90s, I would say early 90s. And he's great in it. He plays like a kind of like a clueless handyman type, but he does it really well in a way that he's very fun and likable. He's just a little bit dumb, which I think, like, he's, obviously not a dumb person. And I think he was a fighter before that, like a wrestler, and then they hired him from that, and then he did the show. But if you ever have a chance to watch that show, it's an excellent ensemble piece. Like, everybody in it is so good. It's so funny. It's very funny and weird and fast-paced, and he was great in it, and that's how I started watching him. And then when I heard his like, I had a podcast, and there's an episode he does with Dave Foley. This was many years ago, who is a Canadian. I don't know if you know who Dave Foley is, but he was like the pivotal Canadian comedian, because he was in Kids in the Hall, which is our big comedy troupe here, and many years on television. Anyway, he has an episode that he does with him, and it is the most depressing episode you're ever going to hear in your life, because it's about just how bad divorce can be, because Dave Foley had a terrible situation with an ex-wife, and it's just awful, and it involves, like, it's just shitty custody battles, and it's 3 hours, of course, like all his podcasts. It's very interesting, but it's one of those things where you're like, man, if you at least were on the fence about getting married, you never will get married after hearing that podcast. It is the most traumatic, depressing idea of what could happen if you get involved with the wrong person. And wow, it just blows your mind. It also still recommended as a very interesting episode, but youch. So there we go. Those are my 3 recommendations. They all revolve around Joe Rogan and Dave Foley. That's all I know.
Wow, I would say this, what you said at the end, if you are not in relationship, you will watch it and don't want to be in a relationship. And if you are in relationship,
Just marriage. No, not in marriage. What's that?
I mean, even if you are in marriage, you will break up. You will be like,
I mean, you won't, because it's so terrifying what happens when you break up. I'm not cynical about relationships. I'm cynical about marriage. I believe in love and relationships. I just don't believe in marriage. So when you hear that, as somebody obviously who didn't believe in marriage in the first place, I was like, whoo, if ever I had a moment where I thought marriage was a good idea, this podcast will just slap you right in the face and tell you no thanks. So, but I do believe in people and like love. I'm not that cynical.
For me, it's a little bit weird because look, we don't have access to how we will feel in 1 year. Like I'm even scared from myself. I really sometimes look to myself in the mirror and I'm like, I don't know this motherfucker what he will be in 10 years.
And you don't. You have no idea who you'll be in 10 years. It's weird.
Yeah, but I do believe that we have access to our action, and it's hard. It's very hard to watch your actions. It's really fucked up with the brain and do it too many wrong things. So I just do my best that way.
Yeah, like in terms of, I think I know what you're saying, because I think I feel the same way, that you're like trying to monitor that you do the best you can at any point, and so that you don't have regrets. Is that kind of like what
and to get to the best feeling or who you are, the best?
Nice. I also agree with that. Absolutely. You know, I am always surprised about is that, like, you know, life takes a lot of turns that, and not always bad, just like it takes a lot of turns that you don't have any control over. And then you end up like developing in a certain way that you didn't expect to develop, whether it's like skills or your personality or whatever. And that's what I think that I never knew when I was younger. I don't know how old you are. Are you in your mid-20s?
You know, I don't know. You even congratulate me in Facebook. I don't know the exact date.
You don't know the exact number,
90,
right?
98. I was
98. Okay, we're gonna do math here, and and so that's almost 2000. So you're very young, right? You're about 24. My math is terrible, but yeah, around there.
And I don't care about age. Like I just feel like we create this age. Like what's age? I am
sure. I mean, it doesn't matter because it's not relevant. What it is relevant though is just that time. You know, your experience of time on the earth. Sometimes it's like, oh, you've been around this long, so you have had more time on the earth to develop certain experiences. Not true for everyone. Some people do nothing in 80 years, and some people do an insane amount in 20. So you're absolutely right. It actually doesn't define very much. It's just interesting, you know? You
know, they even think now, some science, that getting old is disease that come to us. And now they are trying to fix, because we are just chemicals, and they are trying to fix this formula how we don't age. So I don't care about it.
Well, I'm looking forward to that, you know. And I'm 47, and so like I look, sometimes I'm like, oh, this wrinkle's developing or whatever, and I've never been into like skin creams or whatever, and I still think they're bullshit. But of course now I'm like, what are the latest innovations in wrinkles? So like I am in support of them, you know, because there is a certain it's not just narcissism, it's also how people look at women and the ideas they have, right? So you're like, oh, I don't want them to think of me in ways that are less, not even desirable, but like less valuable in society. And that's kind of this societal thing with women, you know, is that the older you get, the less value people have for you. It's just, I mean, we do that with people of any gender, but women in particular. So anyway, that's all to say, I still want wrinkle cream, and I'm looking forward to all the developments with that.
You know, it will come, because look, we now can replace people's knees. Now we can make different hip, And before like 10 years, 20 years, there were nothing of this. So the world will not stop in this. So be positive, or
I
maybe
will. I'm optimistic about it for sure. Looking
yeah.
forward to it.
But for now, I just think like the best is to try to age better, and
Hmm.
I'm just doing my best to age better. But it's crazy. Um, I just like what you said. If I am women, it's really stressful because you are
I know.
young, and whenever you go, everyone is like when you are young, when you are in your 20s, and then that light just go off when you are
Well,
old.
yeah, I mean that in perception wise, right? Like that's you're absolutely right. And I mean there are good and bad things about like the desirability, right? Because I mean I'm very happy to get sexually harassed less. That is a gift, and I'm very excited about it. It's been lovely. So it's like less people are attracted to me, and that's good. But you're absolutely right that our perception as a society of women is that yeah, that there's a like women in their 20s. Oh, that's like so wonderful and magical and like glowy and beautiful, and then that's great, and everyone wants that. And then you get like older, 30s, 40s, and it's just like okay. And and I am pretty secure with myself and my age, but it's interesting to like observe that, and also to be like, oh my god, what I thought about people my age when I was younger is so it's so different to be that person, to now be in my 40s and get close to 50 and be like, I was really wrong, and it was fucked up how I viewed
Mm.
being older. And so and it's just ingrained, right? It's just ingrained in what you see, the media and people, how people talk about women, and it's weird.
Like to be honest, I don't know how old you are, and now that you are saying when I'm on
Mm.
my 40s, or but honestly, you are so attractive. Like even when we
Thank you. I
first meet
appreciate
in
that.
when we meet in Hilmari, you
Open mic, yes.
like you look. I like your hair colors always. It's beautiful, makes you look
Thank
young,
you.
and like you are like I'm here. I'm still like living my life. You know, there is no
Yeah,
limit. So
absolutely.
it's even more attractive. Come on, Monica.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. I do. Yeah, I'm with you with the age thing. It's like I think it's kind of irrelevant in some ways because everybody it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. But it's always very interesting to me how people react to age. Like when I'm online, when I was online dating, and people would like a lot of guys would write like, I'm really okay with how old you are. And it's like, oh, thank you. Like, it always just made me laugh because it's like, I don't need your approval. And also, you're telling me that I should feel like there's something great about you giving me your attention. And I don't care. Like, if you think I'm interesting and you don't, age isn't the thing that's the most important to you in terms of how valuable a woman is, then great. But if you feel that there's something wrong with me and that I have to be grateful for your attention, to it's like to you to bestow that on me, like, no, we're good, we're okay. Not, like that's just, it makes me, it's so weird and fascinating, just the dynamics of that. It,
You know, I came from class system country, so up on the
yeah.
advantage of Yemen, the roads, the everything, the
On top of
technology.
all of that,
I don't know if you I heard my hospital joke. I think you didn't about the
I
hospital.
don't think I have.
Yes.
So the
Uh,
hospitals sound like they'd be great there.
so you maybe you will hear it in one of the open mics, but um, what I wanted to say, see, when I start going right and left, I get lost. What we were talking about.
So you were talking about the case system and hospitals.
No, before that, you were talking about something.
Okay.
Yes, I
So
came from class system.
yeah.
I don't even know how my brain works. Like now I remember, but before 5 seconds I didn't. So the class,
Okay.
I came from class system in Yemen,
Yes.
hierarchy, and when you
Yes.
are when you are from that class system, you feel what others feel about age, or about how people feel when
Mm.
they feel like they are being under the hierarchy because my age is different or I am from here. I had one
Sure.
woman from South Carolina,
Yeah.
Kentucky, and she being embarrassed to talk with her accent if she go, for example, to New York, and people will be, oh, where are
Sure.
you from? So,
Mhm.
so for me, I feel that humans, we did this. Maybe this people who do this should take some mushrooms so they can relax a little bit with me. You know, but I feel bad when people feel that way, like what you said about age or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, well, of course, but yeah, it's I think the mushrooms would help. I think everyone always wants to feel like a little superior to everyone else, like, oh, I'm doing okay. So, well, you've got that accent, so I'm better than you because of that. I think it's strange. I think it's hugely admirable that your English is so good that you're able to do comedy in your non-first language. I assume it's not your first language, and it's so good. And I can't imagine speaking any of the other language that I don't speak as well as English and doing comedy in it. Like that's profound. Like, so I hope you're really proud of yourself for that, because that's crazy.
Well, I'm very tough at myself. I always like. I will never celebrate or be like, oh, well done. Because I'm not happy with my situation. Like I wanna
Sure.
when I'm never like happy with my situation, and I just keep telling myself that you need to work harder, never be proud or
And
something.
okay, so can I be an old person and impart my wise advice from
That's
like a
why I'm
perspective of
talking to
someone
you.
who has been like you for my whole life? You don't want to wait to like enjoy your life, because you kind of may never get to the point where you feel satisfied with all the circumstances in your life. There's always going to be something you're dissatisfied with, unless you're like so wealthy and everyone in your life is perfect. And I don't know when anyone gets to that point. So I'd say like try not to be so hard on yourself, because that's you miss out on a lot of like joy in your life when you do that. I say that as someone who's still working on that for myself. So I'm just trying to be like, hey man, I'm looking at my life and going, I could have been happier. And I was so hard on myself and so like dogged to get places and to, and if I didn't get somewhere, it's because I didn't work hard enough. But that is so tiring, and you lose so much enjoyment when you're doing that. So
Mm.
there we go. Take my 2 cents. It might be only valuable as 125, but just take it as you wish.
No, that's why I'm here. And also, I want to come back to like, I also don't understand why some humans, is it joy or what's the point when some humans make other humans feel bad
Mm,
for any reason? I think, I do believe that they are not happy because
yes.
you will never be happy unless you make sure everyone is around you happy.
Right.
So I think they have the lack of happiness, the lack of controlling their life. And that's what I want people who get victimized with anything from the society to know. So they can be aware and not let it hurt them too much.
Right. Like to not internalize, like how, to be like, okay, that's someone else. That's their perspective, right? And not like that doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. That's always hard. It's so I think that's very hard, because you don't, it's not like there's a button you could press to be like they're lying, or they're like you don't what I mean. Like imagine someone comes up to me and comes up to you, they're like, you're a shitty person and you're stupid and you never will get anywhere, and then you have a button and it goes, they're lying, that's not true, and you're like, oh, okay. Because like when someone says something to you about who you are, sometimes you're like, is that true? Is like, am I dumb? Am I ugly? Am I mean? Whatever it is that they say, it's so hard to really come out and go inside yourself and be like, are they telling the truth? Sometimes someone's saying something and it's not positive, but it is true, and you have to like examine that. But sometimes people say things because they're frustrated, they're jealous, they're having a difficult day. It's very hard to know that totally, whether it's where people are coming from and whether you should internalize it or not. I don't know. It's my family is like very Eastern European, and they will never believe anything is wrong with them that they have to work on. It's always somebody else. And so no matter what it is. And so I'm always working on like trying to be like, okay, what this person said, is that true of me? Like, do I have to actually work on that? Because if I do, I'd like to be a better person, as we talked about earlier. So
Yeah, it's just crazy. And you know, whatever you eat, whatever you do in your everyday life, the people around you, it's what your actions, it what makes you who you are, and what makes you say what you say. So now if you get hurt or you take in like you count what other one said and you take it whoever from the street, you are like gambling on someone past and you don't know how garbage it is. Maybe if you
oh,
just
sure.
say someone show you, like I don't know if we have technology to show you like how someone past stink, I think you will not take 99% of what you have heard or what hurts your
Oh,
actions or
sure.
anything.
Oh, sure. And like sometimes when like, my mother always gives advice no one asks for, but she always gives advice, always. And then, when it comes to certain things, you're like, well, I'm almost everything. I'm like, well, but you're very unhappy. So I can't, your advice is going to lead me to that unhappiness. It's when somebody's telling you something and like, it's one thing if they're like, yeah, like okay, I have done this and therefore I have a good circle of friends and I'm healthier and whatever. Oh, okay. Well, let's hear how you did that. But then someone's miserable and they're like, you should also do this. You're like, but you're miserable. I don't want to do those things. I don't understand.
Yeah, it's what I feel bad about is always the kids. Some kids, they don't
Sure.
realize it. They don't realize that they have shitty parents, or maybe they realize it
Yeah,
with the wrong way.
I know. Isn't
It,
that like what's a horrible thing to think about? There's a book, I don't know if I think you would like it. It's called fuck, what is it called? It's his name is Shirzad Shamin, and Emotional Intelligence, I think, is the book. But I will find it and let you know what it is. Where while we're talking, I don't know. I'm literally listening to it for the third time. Positive Intelligence. That's what it's called. Positive Intelligence. And one of the things he talks about, and he's such a lovely, charismatic man. And when you see him talk, you're just like, people must gravitate to him all the time because he's funny and charming and smart and self-aware. But
that's
then he talks about his childhood and you're just like, oh, and he's, honest. He's not being self-pitying, but you're like, oh, your parents sucked. And like, it sucks, because he talks about that he had to, like, his parents really sucked and they treated him badly. And because when you're a child, you're unsafe. Like the only way you could survive in the world is through your parents. And so he had to survive, he had to believe, well, my parents are probably right, because they can't be wrong. They can't be dysfunctional. I have to survive by being with them. That's the only way. So they must be right about things. And so they're right about me being a bad person. And then he internalized that so much for so long. It's intense.
wow. It's like, even if you have a dog or if you have a kid, you feed, if you feed something, you can also feed them an ideas and
Yes.
program their mind. And I even feel like it's not even with kids, even dogs and animals.
Yeah.
You can have the same two dogs, but one dog live with someone who is crazy or not good
Yes.
parent. The two dogs, one of them will be fucked, and they're dogs.
Yes, it's so, isn't that like sorry, I'm like always like thinking about another thing. I sound like I always sound like such a dick when I talk on podcasts because I'm like, well, there's another book that I read. I don't even read that
It's
many books,
fine.
but like there's a great documentary that has those questions and I don't think they ever answer it. It's called Three Identical Strangers. That's what it's called, Three Identical Strangers. And it's about these triplets. And it's a true story, a documentary about they got separated at birth. And then they got reunited by accident 20 years later. and they never knew they had each other. They never knew they were triplets. They just thought they were like there. And then like a news article came out about one of them, and they were like looking at the picture, and this guy's like, that guy looks just like me. How is this possible? And then the third one, someone said, I don't remember the order, but something like that. The third one, somebody else was like, dude, this guy in the newspaper looks just like you. And then they found each other. And then they go through like talking about how they got like how they eventually find out how they got separated, which is fucked up. But also what's really weird is kind of like, so one of them has a very intense depression, and they kind of are like examining whether these things are part of how you were raised or whether they're part of your genetics. And it like, I don't think it actually answers that. It kind of says both of those things come into play, but it's really interesting because all those three people had the same genes, and they were raised in three different families, and it's really very interesting to see. It's I think it's one of the better documentaries I've seen, just because it's so insane and interesting. But yeah, it really raises those questions.
I don't want to be too much now, but it's true. That's why I always people say when I talk about Joe Rogan podcast, I feel like I'm exaggerating, but I'm not, because it was my window to reprogram my mind and to be with other perspective and to live like it was the only thing. Like I was just listening, or maybe that's why I'm fucked up now.
No, I mean, yes, but no.
Because we never know, and maybe we are wrong always.
Oh, well, yeah, and there's no way to know. That's why we're, insane, because we can never know. Like I start thinking in lockdown, there are times where I'm like, I'm fine, I'm doing fine. And then I'm like, maybe I've gone so crazy that I don't know I'm crazy. That's also possible, right? Maybe I've gone so far into the realm of like, just, wackiness that I'm like, everything is fine. Like the meme with the dog and the fire having their coffee. Like, who can know, right?
Yeah, look, when you talk to yourself, you become crazy. It's true. Like you that's why we need people around us. Like if you just talk to yourself with your mind.
Yeah.
That's why I never talk to myself. I listen to podcasts all the time, because whenever I start to think, I'm like,
okay.
fuck, stop. I listen to the podcast. It's my escape from my
from your brain. That's like, no, I relate. I mean, it's so important to actually be still and hear those thoughts, because once you hear them, you go, oh, that's not okay. Like this thought, I had to do that like in many times, but like a year ago, I was having like a whole bunch of really bad thoughts because we were in lockdown and I was extremely anxious and a lot of things were happening. And I had like, at some point I was writing a story about like how I felt I wasn't successful in the ways that I wanted to be successful. And when I wrote the story, I eventually was like thinking, okay, why do I have this thought? Like, what is this? And I finally like shook out this thought of this one thing my father had said one time, 20 something years ago, that has apparently been like lodged into the back of my brain for 20 something years. And I don't hear it every day when I feel those awful, dark thoughts, but it's there, chirping at me all the time, it's crazy. So you have to kind of be quiet sometimes and hear those thoughts to know that they're there, right? That you have to work on them.
It's weird how the brain process, because some information go to the long-term memory and it depends how you take them. Like, maybe you hear some jokes in our Zooms, some people come and do it more time just 1 month ago and you forgot it. But this comes from 20. I think it depends how you take it and what does that person mean to you? How did they say it to you? So
and how you feel you're valued. Like when my this is not even very important, but my father said, like, I hope I live long enough to see you do something, basically. Like, hope you, because I was an actor, I hope you live long enough to finally see you be successful, you know, like it, like, you know, this too, because it would prove something to him, because he felt like I wasted my life. That was, you know, that was his belief. And so, you know, I was like, well, I'm working on it. Like, I did want him to live long enough to see me be successful. And he passed away like 3-4 years ago, so that's never going to happen. And I didn't realize, yeah, how much that was there in my brain of being like contributing to feeling like a failure. It was like I always wanted to prove to my father that I wasn't wasting my life, and I wasn't disrespecting the fact that he came to a new country, you know, and tried to give give himself a better life too, of course, but also give me a better life. And then it was like, oh, you know, I wanted him to feel like, well, it's not for nothing. And then of course he passes away, and it's like, well, as far as you knew, it was for nothing, right? So it's like, woo. And I didn't even know that it was back in my brain, like just circulating for so long, until I sat there and tried to work out why these thoughts were happening and why I felt so bleak when I really wasn't a bad person. You know, like there was not enough good reason to feel so bad about myself and my life, really, when I looked at it. But there it was, back lodged in the back of my brain.
But you know, maybe like I know, I don't know, but some people, when someone they love die or something like this, they will, for example, take it as now they are watching me, and I will take it as motivation that I will do what they want me to do now. What would they tell me now if they are still alive?
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'm an atheist, right? So I don't believe in an afterlife. I want to, but I don't believe in it. So I don't think that, but that's a nice thought. I mean, it's a nice thought to believe that, like, that it's unending, right? That you will be able to resolve these things that you did not resolve in, you know, in the world of the living, right? But I don't know. I have a lot of jokes about death and the afterlife, and they haven't worked yet. So someday, that's the ones I take back 10 years from now, and I'm like, oh, they're all right now.
Wow. I like also some people think that by like keep doing it, you in a way also keep the person alive and spirit alive because you do. This is bullshit. Just I don't know.
I don't know. I also don't
I
know.
just sometimes believe in things that give me positive
Comfort.
vibes. Yes,
Yep.
and
Me too.
but back in my head, I don't know where we come even from. It's funny. One person was saying, what if we are like the fish in the water, and you know sometimes when you take one fish out and it come back, maybe these people like they have been abducted, you know, they take one out.
Okay. Yes.
It's like we are like fishes in the ocean, humans, and we don't know what's outside.
Okay. Yeah.
And let's say like that's some people who believe in the aliens and abduction theory. They are like when someone get abducted, it's like imagine there is fish in the ocean. She only see fishes. She's only in that world, and then we take her outside and then we throw it back.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, I mean, you feel that way when you've obviously even have more experience with that than I have, but like when you're going from country to country, right? I mean, you always feel a little bit like that alien. In some ways, it's so exciting. I don't know if you feel that way. Like you know, I don't have the same experience, obviously, of growing up in a very, like, you know, repressive, that kind of. I grew up with repressive parents in a very progressive city, so I'm very lucky for that. But that's like, it's, yeah. I mean, imagine like living in Cyprus must be like, you feel like an alien, but also it's kind of great, like, I'm guessing, in some ways, or no?
Look, I love traveling.
Yeah.
For me, and that's why it's like the most thing I love I cannot do. So I lived in Yemen, I went to Malaysia, I went to Jordan, I went here and there, but um, in Yemen I was living in Yemen for like 17, 16 years, and now in Cyprus for like 4 years.
Okay.
And the problem is if you are from Yemen, you cannot go anywhere, you cannot travel because in a way you don't have country to go back to.
Mm-hmm.
So anywhere you want to go to, the immigration knows that you will not leave.
Yes. Oh shit. Okay.
So but now things are fixed. Like it's just matter of time, and
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
you have some background. Anyway, but I feel like traveling is just so amazing. When you like, even when you
Yeah.
arrive to the airport, you smell different. The weather, you feel different.
Yeah, it's so great, and to be a stranger in the world is like such a cool feeling, to observe things through those new eyes. Like I love going to, even just to a new city in the US or in Canada or whatever. And but I mean, I've traveled other places, but it's just like so cool. It's like, oh, this is, everything is new, and you're everything you see, every experience you have is totally new to you. And like, yeah, I also love it, and think it's so exciting, and meeting people, in new cities. And oh, it's just so cool. I also, yeah, I love it. I also love traveling and experiencing those things. It's very exciting.
Yeah,
Someday we can do it again. Someday.
yeah, and I feel like they even say that when you travel to other place and you live there, your something in your body changed. So, like
Hmm.
you become different, and that's why, like before, or even in religions, God say to the prophet, travel, leave, because when you leave where you are now. See, when it comes to science, I get crumbled with the terms, but some
Sure.
things in your body, some chemicals start to change and be new, different. That's why you become different person.
Oh, okay. All right. I mean, it definitely like expands your mind to have those new experiences too. That's so cool. Yeah, I like traveling. It's good. That's the
Yeah,
stamp. It's just
and
good. It's good stuff.
also English is good. I'm now in Cyprus, and I go sometimes. So the only where I meet humans is in the gym or the supermarket. I
Okay.
do
Okay.
comedy, I do work from home, and then I just go buy food. And I go to the gym, and some people don't speak English. They only speak Cypriot, and they are in Europe.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm like, they are in Europe, so they can travel all Europe,
Yeah.
Germany, and I guess they can even go to Canada and America, but they don't even speak English. And I'm like, oh my God, like you have the opportunity. Why don't you? And I'm sure when someone speak only one language and it's small, like here, the language, not too many people, their limits and their mind and the ideas they get or they get access to.
Yeah, I mean, if you have the ability, obviously, I'm lucky because my parents, I grew up both with Hungarian and English, but it was never an option to not learn English. So I can't even have the perspective of like, well, I learned English because I wanted to expand my world. I don't have that. I just got lucky, and I know the language that's spoken all over the world, and that's like a real gift. So yeah, so that's, yeah, certainly I will just recognize the privilege that is there. So but I know exactly what you're talking about, because we have the same situation here in Montreal, because the primary language here is French, but it's a French that's only spoken the way it is, like the slang or the I don't remember that, but you know how it's different. I don't know if you've ever heard what it sounds like, the French in Montreal. But if you haven't, it's like, how like if you hear someone speaking in England, but they have like a sort of very specific, not a British accent, but like the sort of like a
Yeah.
more down, like, I don't know how to explain it. Anyway, just more colloquial accent. That's the same thing in Quebec. It's just a very specific French, and it actually doesn't work that well in any other place they would speak French. Like in France, you couldn't go and speak this type of French and be immediately understood. It's a different type of French. Like you will be understood, but it doesn't work, right? It's like a Southern person going somewhere else, right? Like sometimes it's just like, oh, okay, that even more so because the words are different, a lot of words.
Okay.
Anyway, I guess my whole point is, what's sometimes weird to me is there's a lot of laws here and a lot of programs to get people to not speak English at all. It's a whole weird thing. They don't want the English to speak English because it might take over and become the dominant language, because that's what English does. But also they want to keep French people from wanting to speak English because it's important to not lose their French. But okay, there's no harm, in my opinion, of learning both languages, especially when the other language, English, and spoken the way that we do here, which is kind of a normal, a very accessible way of speaking English, will allow them to go anywhere in the world and be able to be understood for the most part, right? A lot of places have English at least as a second language, right? So I don't understand. There's a lot of people here that don't speak English at all. And even though 40% of the population is English, they will not make the effort to learn English, speak English, try English, ever. They don't want to speak any English. And I'm like, I don't like. I don't, because I'm very much in support of being bilingual. I think that's very important. But I am very shocked that people will have the opportunity where it's so easy to kind of talk to other people and gain an understanding of English and just refuse to. So, all right, I guess. So anyway, that's my preacher stance on what's wrong with Montreal. Part one of many, but I still like it here. And I live here willingly out of choice at this point. So, I can't really complain too much. I do like it.
Yeah, you even have joke about the language.
Yes, well, yeah, exactly. It's weird. It's a weird city. I will, I know, yeah, it's like, I feel you can like something and not think it's perfect.
But do you think English is the most language that give you access to information?
I think it is. But again, I'm coming from like I started the podcast saying, I'm very clueless in a lot of ways because I did grow up in North America and I do like English and have always tried my best to sound like a native English speaker who didn't have immigrant parents. That was extremely important to me because I was an actor and because of how people treat you when they class, in some ways the class thing. They think you're well educated, people talk to you a certain way. If they think that you're, people treat you differently if you have an accent. And so for me, even though English was sort of my first language, because my parents were Hungarian, it was very easy to not sound like a perfect English speaker. And I made a real effort to sound like that so that I would, get those advantages. It's a weird thing and I'm an asshole, but that's how it is.
Okay, some people go for English language therapy, or I don't know. English.
Yeah.
Because for me, I feel like I'm happy. Like my accent is unique. Why would I change it if I'm?
And I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. But in my life, the way that I was looking at it was I already had all these I'm going to say disadvantages, but only disadvantages in terms of the society I was in. Okay. So not disadvantages. I'm white. There's lots of good stuff about being white, but there were disadvantages in terms of how people treated me and how much of an outsider I felt because my family wasn't rich and I went to schools in rich neighborhoods and I was treated like I was a fuck up. And so for me, it was very important to start to blend into society in a way and feel a little bit more like not a weirdo. So I completely agree. The only problem with the accents and how people, from my experience with my friends who have accents in North America, they get treated like less than, and also like a child. People will speak to them like they're not smart, even if they're even more educated than the person who is English. They will, have a lot of experience with friends telling me that people talk to them like they're children because North Americans are ignorant and they think if someone has an accent, sometimes they're just like, oh, I guess you're not that bright. I sound like this, it's crazy, but it's wrong, but it exists.
Yeah, sorry, I heard your alarm. Because I don't want to, maybe you have to do something.
Probably in if we wind it down in a few minutes, is that okay with you?
Look, to be honest, some people, I feel like I could talk to them for days. So you are one of them, but for
same.
We can wrap it up even now, so you can.
Okay, sure. I mean, if that's okay, did you feel like you got what you wanted out of the podcast? Is it okay?
To be honest, as we talked, that there is kids that they might feel like they are something wrong with them, or their parents is and I feel like podcast is a way for some people to reprogram their mind, to live with other perspective, to grow.
Okay.
If they come from fucked up neighborhoods or family, like I do feel that it's even then better than music, because some people will
Okay.
start listening to rap and their ear will. So I don't know, maybe it works, maybe podcast is fucked up as well, like rap, some people think, but I just felt some benefit out of it when I listened to Joe Rogan. So I was like, why not do it? And I feel like just you being yourself, being nice, having warm heart in this podcast,
Thank you.
expressing yourself is more than enough. Just you
Okay.
being here and talking.
Well,
I'm so
thank you.
happy
I
to.
also enjoyed it. I'm sorry if you wanted to talk more about comedy and we didn't really do that.
No, no, I really just want to have open conversation and just be nice and know what you do, how you think. It's amazing. I learn a lot always when I talk to.
Cool. I really enjoyed speaking with you too.
Yeah, and hopefully I can even have you again. So don't
Sounds
worry.
great.
We keep
Yes.
in touch, and hopefully I see you in Hilmari today, or
Oh, probably today. We'll see. I'll see how much
I
work
will
I can
say
get done before it, but yeah.
the health system joke if you come.
Oh yeah, okay, that's right. I do want to hear about your hospitals. All right, keep that. I'll keep that in mind. I'm gonna write that down. I gotta make you do the hospital joke one time when I'm on the mic. Okay, are you planning to do it today?
Don't worry, I don't want to rush you. If whenever
Okay.
you come, I will do it today or next
Okay.
week.
Okay. Thank you.
God
Okay.
bless you, Monica. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This is really lovely. Have a
You
great
are
day.
amazing. Bye bye.
Bye. You are lovely. Bye.